This is a photo of the wall where I want to put my vinyl lettering. You can see we have a painting of the Italian countryside right here in the middle. I'm planning to put the lettering above the painting, and I just need three things to get ready. I need 5 minutes, a tape measure, and a piece of paper to write the dimensions on. Here you can see the sketch that I made. It took less than 5 minutes, and you can also tell I'm not an artist, but it has the important elements: the height and width of the wall, the height and width of the frame, and also the basic position of the painting on the wall from the left side and also from the top. Okay, so just to recap where we left off, we created our layout using the controls at the top of the screen, and once we had that looking right, we went ahead and we clicked on Size and Visualize in the lower left, and it zoomed out to what we call the wall mode. Now this shows us realistically what this layout at about 14.8 inches tall would look like on a wall that's 11 feet wide by 8 feet tall. I mean, this is true to reality. So what we want to do next is we went and took our measurements of the actual wall, and we want to customize this design space so that it matches reality. So we'll start by changing the wall size. Here in the lower left, I'm going to go ahead and change the wall size to what my measurements showed, which was 8 feet 5 inches wide and 9 feet 6 inches tall. And as you can see, the wall automatically changes to whatever dimensions I put in. So I'll go ahead and everything is movable on the screen. The wall stays the same, but everything else is movable. So I'm going to move the silhouette so she's back down standing on the floor again. And then I'm going to go ahead and move our layout kind of out of the way while we get this space customized further. So next we can go ahead and choose the wall color. So we click on the drop down here and we'll choose a color that looks similar to our wall, and I think that's pretty close. So we'll go with that. And now we need to have a representation of the painting. Now if we go under sizing objects and click on add, we see a whole bunch of different categories of sizing objects that we can actually import into the Design Center to help give us context. We're going to choose wall decor and then rectangle frame. When the frame comes in, you'll see that up above here it says object size, and then there's two default values. You'll also notice that proportional is not checked, which means that we can actually enter these values independently. So we just set the width to 55, which is what I measured, and then the height to 43, and the painting is exactly the size that we need it to be. So the next step is to get this painting positioned on the wall correctly, and that's actually really easy to do. All we got to do is under wall we see wall sizing grid, and we click on show, and the grid shows up, which shows the measurements of the wall in 1 foot increments. Now when I measured that it was 30 inches from the top of the wall to the top of the picture. So that's 2.5 feet. So our half foot is right here at the top, since this is 9 foot 6 inches tall. And then if we go down 2 more feet to 7 feet, we're right in the right position. And then from the left side it was 2 feet 1.5 inches. So right there is just about perfect as far as where we want it to be. And now we can go ahead and click hide on the sizing grid, and the grid goes away. And so now we have it sized and positioned just the way we need it to match reality. And so we'll take our layout and go ahead and drag it up, and then grab a handle and make it a little bigger so we can get a better appreciation of how it looks. Now when I look at this, I really like the way it's laid out, but now that I see it in context, I realize I think I kind of want my layout to be a little bit more horizontal and not as vertical like we have it now. So I'm going to go ahead and take this vignette and move it out of the way, and then it's really easy to actually make these adjustments. And when you see things in context, it can quickly become clear what looks good and what doesn't. And so that's one of the great advantages of being able to see it in context. So I can already tell that I like that quite a bit better on a single horizontal line. And now it probably makes a little more sense to add some decorative ends. So if we click on decorative ends pairs, there's a pair that I like quite a bit on the third screen here that I think would go good with this font. And I'm going to go ahead, they come in individually, but you can actually highlight both of them and move them together. And you can actually size them together. So if I grab a handle and kind of size it, then I can do both of them at the same time. So I'll go ahead and put these into position, and looks like I went a little bit low on that one. That's better. Okay, and now if I grab the entire layout, all three pieces together, I can size those three pieces together and make sure that it fits on the wall just the way I want it to. Now I'm thinking I want it to be just inside of the footprint of the frame, so I'm going to make it just a little bit narrower and then go ahead and center it. And then there it is. Now don't forget that these decorative ends, when we imported them, the default color is black, so we want that to be brown. So a quick way to change that is just to highlight your entire layout and then go to the color wheel and change it to brown, and it applies that to all three layers at the same time. So now we have it sized and set to the right color, and it looks great. But let's just say you had some doubts and you were thinking, I wish I could see another thing, I want to compare it to another font. Well, it's really easy to highlight the layer you have and then just click duplicate layer and then put a new layer above it and then change that one to the font that you're considering. So let's say we want to see it in Alex. So if we click OK, now we have it here in the Alex font and we can kind of see them together. And I guess we should make the size a little smaller to make it sort of an apples to apples. And if I had time, I might put decorative ends up to here with this one, but for illustration I'm going to show you that it's also very easy to take the first layout and just kind of move it off to the side here and then put the new layout kind of in position, and you can get a pretty quick idea about how you feel about it and whether you like it or not. I think in this case I prefer the first design, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that one. And you'll see that when I put this design to the left, it's actually partially off screen. Well, there's no need to panic here. We can get to all of it. All we got to do is look over here to the zoom menu, which you just hover over this magnifying glass, and if we click the minus sign, then the whole screen zooms out and we're able to get to anything we need. So we zoom out far enough to highlight our design and then just drag it right back into place. And then there's a couple ways to get zoom back in. We go back to the zoom menu and we can click the plus sign, which of course brings it back in, or we can click zoom to wall, which will actually bring it back into wall mode. Now let's say that we wanted to get just a little bit closer and do a little more work, or we want to see it closer so we can appreciate what it really looks like. If you highlight your layout and you go to the zoom menu, you can go to zoom to selected, and so whatever is selected will now be zoomed into. And then if it's too close, of course, you can always back out a little bit. And then finally, as you're working on things in the close-up mode like we are now, it's good to know that there's two cursor modes. If we change it to move wall, then we can actually just grab the wall and move the wall wherever we want. So if for some reason when you zoomed in things weren't centered, then you actually can just move the wall to where you need it, and then you can put it back into select objects mode, which is the mode it's usually in. But when we're close up, that move wall mode is very, very handy. And so once you've made your changes or looked at it and made sure everything looks good, then you can just zoom to wall again and it'll go back out to wall mode. And the final thing I want to talk about is just how when you click on a layer, we want to get rid of this layer, but you'll notice that when we highlight it here, it's also highlighted in blue on the layers panel, and you can delete it here or here. So we'll delete it here in the layers panel and show you that the whole thing goes away. So there we are. We have our layout. It looks nice. It looks like it's a really good size according to the proportions that we've set up, and we're going to show you just how it looks on the wall in comparison to this virtual version. Alright, so here we have it side by side. On the left, the virtual version of our design, and on the right, a photo of the vinyl actually applied to the wall, set to the dimensions that we designed in the Design Center. And as you can see, the impact that we see on the left in the virtual space is exactly the same as the impact we see in reality. Even though the colors might be slightly different and the picture frame maybe looks different than the actual picture itself, the dimensions are absolutely correct, and you can see that here. And because of that, because the proportions are right, we can trust what we see in the virtual space, and we won't have any surprises when we actually get it on the wall. So that's just about everything. This has been a relatively simple example, but we hope you'll be able to take these basic concepts and use them in any situation where you want to see your lettering on the wall before you purchase. We've proven this concept thousands of times over the years with our customers. If your measurements are accurate, then trust what you see on the screen. We've found that the bigger your design space is, the more indispensable this functionality is. It's just very difficult to imagine how lettering is going to look on a very large wall. Take some measurements, create it virtually first, and you won't have to imagine or guess what it's going to look like. We'd like to thank you for your time and for visiting the Advanced Design Center. If you have any questions, please do give us a call. And finally, we'd like to wish you a pleasant and trouble-free design experience.